Story 1: The Ghost in the Library. In 2013, students at a high school in Massachusetts began reporting strange occurrences in the library. Books would fall off shelves, computers would turn on and off by themselves, and a cold, eerie presence could be felt, especially in the late afternoons. One evening, Emily, a junior, stayed late to finish a project. As she worked, she heard soft whispers and the sound of pages turning. When she looked up, she saw a shadowy figure standing by the bookshelf. The figure seemed to be a girl about her age, with long hair and old-fashioned clothing. The ghostly girl stared at Emily before disappearing into thin air. Terrified, Emily fled the library. Later, she discovered that the school had once been the site of a tragic accident. Decades earlier, a student had died in the library under mysterious circumstances. Emily's encounter was one of many, leading the school to bring in a paranormal investigator. The investigator confirmed the presence of a restless spirit. Despite attempts to cleanse the library, students and staff continued to experience strange phenomena. Story 2: The Haunted Auditorium. In 2015, a high school in Ohio put on a production of Macbeth in their auditorium. During rehearsals, cast members and crew started experiencing unexplained events. Props would move on their own, strange noises echoed through the empty theater, and the lights would flicker erratically. One evening, after rehearsal, Mark, a senior and the lead actor, decided to practice his lines alone on stage. As he recited his lines, he felt a sudden chill and saw a shadowy figure in the back row of the auditorium. The figure slowly stood up and began to walk towards the stage, its footsteps echoing in the silent hall. Mark froze in fear as the figure reached the stage and vanished. He later learned that the auditorium had a dark history. A former drama teacher had died tragically during a performance years ago. The teacher's ghost was said to haunt the auditorium, ensuring the plays were performed perfectly. The cast and crew finished the production, but none could forget the eerie experiences they had endured. Story 3: The Locker Room Nightmare. In 2017, a high school in Texas was plagued by unsettling events in the girls' locker room. Students reported lockers opening and closing on their own, showers turning on and off, and eerie, disembodied laughter echoing through the room. One afternoon, Lisa, a sophomore, stayed late after practice to retrieve her forgotten gym bag. As she entered the locker room, the lights flickered, and she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around but saw no one. Suddenly, all the lockers banged open simultaneously, and a cold breeze swept through the room. Panicking, Lisa grabbed her bag and ran out. The school later revealed that the locker room was built over the site of a former swimming pool where a tragic drowning had occurred years ago. The spirit of the drowned student was believed to be the source of the disturbances. Despite efforts to appease the spirit, the locker room remained a place of fear and unease for the students. Story 4: The Phantom Janitor. In 2018, a high school in New York experienced a series of strange sightings of a phantom janitor. Students and staff reported seeing an old man in a janitor's uniform, mopping the floors late at night. He would appear in the hallways, the cafeteria, and even the classrooms, but when approached, he would vanish. One night, Mr. Johnson, a history teacher, stayed late to grade papers. He saw the janitor down the hall, mopping the floor. He called out to thank him for his hard work, but the janitor didn't respond. As Mr. Johnson approached, the janitor turned the corner and disappeared. Puzzled, Mr. Johnson asked the school administration about the janitor the next day. He was shocked to learn that the janitor he described had died over a decade ago in a tragic accident at the school. The sightings of the phantom janitor continued, with many believing he was still dutifully performing his nightly rounds, unaware of his own death. The story became a local legend, and the janitor's ghost was both feared and respected by the students. Story 5: The Chemistry Lab Incident. In 2019, a high school in California experienced a chilling event in the chemistry lab. Late one evening, Mr. Reynolds, the chemistry teacher, was working on experiments for an upcoming class. As he mixed chemicals, he noticed a shadow moving across the room. He looked up but saw no one. Moments later, the beakers and test tubes began to rattle, and the temperature in the room dropped suddenly. "Mr. Reynolds heard a faint whisper, "Get out," followed by a loud crash. A shelf of chemicals toppled over, narrowly missing him. Terrified, Mr. Reynolds fled the lab and reported the incident to the school principal. They later discovered that a student had died in a chemical explosion in the same lab years earlier. The student's spirit was believed to be responsible for the disturbances, trying to prevent another accident. The chemistry lab was cleansed, and safety protocols were reinforced, but Mr. Reynolds never stayed late alone again, haunted by the memory of that terrifying night. Story 6: The Figure in the Yearbook. In 2020, at a high school in Illinois, students working on the yearbook began to notice something strange. In photos taken around the school, a shadowy figure would appear in the background. The figure was a tall man in old-fashioned clothing, with a stern expression. One afternoon, Katie, the yearbook editor, was reviewing photos on her computer when she saw the figure standing behind a group of students in the cafeteria. She showed her friends, but no one recognized him. Intrigued, she researched the school's history and found an old yearbook from the 1950s. To her shock, the same man appeared in the old photos, identified as Mr. Thompson, a former principal known for his strict discipline. He had died under mysterious circumstances in his office. The sightings of the figure continued, and students began to feel uneasy, especially in the older parts of the school. The principal brought in a paranormal expert who confirmed the presence of Mr. Thompson's spirit. Katie and her friends held a small memorial in the school to honor Mr. Thompson, hoping to bring him peace. The figure in the photos disappeared, but the story of the haunted yearbook remained a chilling reminder of the school's haunted past.